My notes are so far over here. I think I'll just leave them here today and just look down. Wow, I'm going to have to edit all of this out.
Don't look them in. You ever see Les Mis?
I have seen it, but not in a long time. All right. Composure. Welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast, your weekly dose of disc golf. Hello, and welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast. I am your host, John Nicholson, and today I have with me fellow Dynamic Disc team member, Holyn Handley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing wonderful. So we are actually recording the very first podcast ever from my fifth wheel because we finally have the truck back and can sort of pull things with it now.
Yay!
I know, right? We are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was actually very, very cold outside today. We are getting prepared for the Oklahoma Open. Is this your first Oklahoma Open?
Yeah, this is actually the first time playing in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. What are your first impressions of the courses out here?
I mean, very similar to Texas courses, especially like DFW courses. I really do like Blackhawk X. I think it's very wooded and difficult, but fair. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have a whole lot of poke and hope happening. Like they're very clear lines that you need to hit. They're just difficult. Mm-hmm. And then Red Hawk, feels like the kind of park golf that I first learned to play on. So I had a lot of fun today, just kind of getting to open up and throw some crazier lines.
Yeah, there's definitely some much bigger holes on Red Hawk. Black Hawk's a lot more manageable.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is nice. Well, awesome. I'm glad you're getting your first Oklahoma tournament out of the way then.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, actually, before we get started, I skipped over this part, as I usually do. If you are a fan of the podcast, please do me a favor if you're listening. Obvious, I'm looking at the camera again. But if you're listening or watching, I appreciate both. Please make sure to leave a review, like, subscribe, do all the things. Comment, all of them. That'd be great. I really appreciate it. And now, to get started, I have a lot of questions for you today.
Good. Hopefully I have a lot of answers.
I think you probably will. So the first and easiest of the questions, where and when did disc golf start for you?
So for me, it would have been October 2019 in Orange County, California. So my boyfriend, Tyler, he found it online. I think he might have seen like a Jomez video or something and thought it looked like a cool activity we could try. We'd kind of been hobby hopping. We would go try one thing, didn't stick, try another thing, didn't stick, kind of looking for something to do that would get us outside. And so we saw you could get like a $25 starter pack. And that's what we did. We went to Dick's Sporting Goods, got the Innova starter pack, went to a little local like 9-hole pitch and putt, and then just got hooked from there. Started playing Huntington Beach, La Mirada like every single weekend.
That's awesome.
And then eventually got into wanting to learn to throw better, getting into field work, and then getting into playing tournaments.
Very cool. So I know you have a pretty diverse athletic background. Can you kind of take me through what that background was leading up to, I guess, hobby hopping and finding disc golf?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing sports since I was probably about 4 years old. But the big one for me was volleyball. I started playing when I was like 13 or so and played all the way through college. And then after college, I picked up powerlifting for a couple of years. And as much as I enjoyed powerlifting, I didn't like how infrequently I got to compete. And it does get very repetitive because you are just getting strong in 3 lifts.
Just 3 movements? You got tired of that?
Yeah. But yeah, to realistically make progress, you're only competing 3 times a year or so. And so disc golf was great because we could get that competitive like urge out, but it was also different every time you went. You could disc golf almost every day if you wanted to. So I got a little bit more out of it.
Okay, awesome. So how high level volleyball did you end up playing?
I was at a Division III. Let's see, we won our conference tournament my junior and senior year. So we were pretty good. I think the furthest we ever advanced in postseason was Sweet 16.
No, that's awesome. I actually just learned recently. I had no idea you played volleyball, which I don't know why I didn't know. I know that.
How long have we known each other?
I'm being honest, okay? Don't hurt me. But yeah, somebody said something and I was like, wait, she played volleyball? And then I was like, I'm an idiot.
Did you think I was an ultimate player?
I did not.
Okay,
I knew
good.
you powerlifted
Okay.
because of an interview with Terry Miller back after you won. It was. I'm going to go with Maricopa.
Okay, yeah. It was either Maricopa or Veterans Park.
Okay.
That's the only two times I've interviewed with them. So.
I was going to say because I remembered it was an Arizona tournament.
Yeah, that was Maricopa.
Okay. So powerlifting, before we skip right over it, best lift. What was your best lift?
Okay, well, for squat, the highest I ever got in the gym was 315. On the platform was 297. I mean, only in competition lifts really count.
Fair.
So we'll go 297. For bench, I got 165, and for deadlift, I got 369. These are all in kilos. That's why the numbers are weird in pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, well, those numbers aren't in kilos, but yeah, I can understand.
Right. If I had been lifting those weights in kilos, I'd probably still be powerlifting.
Yeah, because you would be the best.
Yeah, that'd be kind of insane.
That's so awesome. So very, very good at powerlifting. That is super cool. So with volleyball and powerlifting, I almost said strength and conditioning for some reason. Similar. With those two, what skill from that athletic background do you think has transferred the most over to disc golf?
I think, yeah, so the volleyball to disc golf, the whole mental game, completely different. Because, in team sports and also a really fast-paced sport, it's really easy to kind of get over mistakes, get over stuff, because you also have teammates to kind of help you pull out of a slump. But you don't have teammates in disc golf.
No, you do not. Well, you do. But you don't.
But not really. Like, you're not there with me, Yeah.
It's fair.
It's like, I'll high-five you after the round, but Anyway, so when you have teammates in a team sport, if I'm not hitting well that day or they've, the other team set up their defense to keep me from really doing well at my thing, I can just focus on, okay, well, I'm going to be a good blocker today, or I'm going to do good off-blocker defense, and someone else can score most of the points. And we can just kind of work our strategy in a different way. But if your putt is off, you don't have anyone who can putt for you.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Or if your approaches are off, it's like you can't sub in someone or rely on someone else. It's just you.
Yeah.
So that was completely different. But if we're talking things that transferred, I think just the willingness to sit there and grind out a skill until you master it. That's universal to all sports.
Yep.
So when I was playing volleyball, I would spend hours doing, ball against the wall kind of drills, to get master different types of touch. So with passing, setting, hitting, to get really good at controlling the ball, you have to spend just hours by yourself doing that. And in disc golf, it's the same thing. You need to spend hours in the field. You need to spend hours in a net, at the basket, to really develop those skills.
No, I love that. And make sure, I know that's a super simple point, but there's a lot of people who look for quick fixes.
They don't exist.
The only quick fix is spending lots and lots of time in the field and learning your discs. I'm sorry. Now, you can't accelerate those things, but moving forward, you're beginning to disc golf, you said in 2019. What did your strengths and weaknesses look like back then, and how have those kind of progressed over time?
Hard to say strengths because I was pretty bad when we started. I honestly think being a powerlifter kind of hurt me at the beginning because when you're lifting max weight, you kind of want to tighten up all of the muscles in your body. Even if you're just squatting, you're tightening up the muscles in your back, you're gripping the bar as hard as you can, you're bracing really hard. And so clenching harder is almost like a good thing in powerlifting, but that's not how you throw a disc. If you try to throw hard or try to use your strength to throw hard, you're going to have problems. And so that was something I really struggled with at the beginning. And for me, it took being okay with not throwing very far, and just focusing on getting the smoothness and the mechanics and just kind of not worrying about the distance. And then the distance kind of took care of itself. Because
Gotcha.
when your form is good, the distance and the accuracy, those all kind of fall into place.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think more recently a strength that's kind of come from volleyball, though, is one of my biggest projects this year has been my sidearm. So I really started in January, backing it up and getting the release down and then slowly kind of building it from there. And I'm starting to reach a level of distance that no one else in the FPO is able to hit. And I'm doing it pretty effortlessly. And I think that kind of snap, that kind of explosiveness has come from 10 years of playing volleyball. So
That's super awesome. Yeah. So I love how that's kind of progressed over time. And yes, please don't clinch everything as hard as you can when you throw.
No, let it out.
It's great advice.
Chill out.
All right. So excluding that, if you could go back and change anything in your disc golf game when you first started, what would you change? Apart from clenching every muscle in your body as hard as you could.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the rounding. That one took me a long time to figure out. I think kind of common advice we give beginners is to reach straight back. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think that's terrible advice because I can't tell you how many, there's still players on tour doing this for a profession who round really badly. And when I went from reaching back to reaching out, that's what finally did it for me. And I wish someone had just told me that at the beginning, had just put the bag at the back left corner of the tee pad and said, reach toward the bag.
Perfect. Instead
of letting me reach straight back like that and then come through and hit my shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one took a minute to get rid of.
All right. It actually is crazy. I could name a few people, but I won't, that are extremely high level in both.
We're
MPO.
Not that kind of podcast where we just call people out for rounding.
No, because I need to interview them. No.
Well, then it becomes a hard-hitting thing. They come in and be like, Holyn says you round. What do you say?
How dare you?
How dare you?
But some of them are like extremely high level and throw the disc very well and very far. And they're just so deep behind them and have to like yank around. And it's like, how do you hit gaps? I don't understand.
Imagine how good they'd be if they could just not do that.
Right? Or if they threw properly, it just falls apart. It's like, what? Yeah. What is wrong with you? I don't know. That'd be funny to see. All right. So, rookie year on tour.
Yep.
So, take me through kind of the process of how you got on tour. Like, what were you doing before you decided, you know what, I'm just going to quit everything and play disc golf?
Yeah, so before I went on tour, I was working as a process engineer for a medical device company. So doing basically component manufacturing for medical devices. And kind of on the side, outside of it, I was starting to get really into disc golf. I was spending all of my time after work, in the field trying to get better. Couldn't go to a course because they were 45 minutes away. By the time I get there, it's dark.
Yeah.
And then playing on the weekends and then getting more into playing the local tournaments. Then I had that win at Maricopa that we just talked about a second ago. That was early 2021. And that's when I got picked up by Dynamic Discs. And so did 1 year as kind of like a regional pro with them. And then toward the end of 2021, Tyler and I decided we wanted to move back to Texas because we wanted to be a little bit closer to family and also a little lower cost of living because SoCal's expensive.
Yeah.
And so we already were kind of at that transition point of like looking for new jobs and trying to figure out what I was going to do once we were in Austin. And that was around November. And so then I won the Veterans Park Open in Arlington because I have family there. And so I was able to just stay with my mom and go play that tournament. And then I got interviewed again by Terry Miller. And shortly he was asking me about sponsorships and stuff. I was like, I don't know, dude, he hasn't offered me anything yet. And then like a week later, I get the offer from DD. And so I'm looking at this offer and it was the same team. It was the same Fusion team again. So like regional pro, but they had added some stuff to clearly try to incentivize me to go play bigger tournaments. They'd added like travel stipends and they were going to pay for more tournament entry fees and stuff. And I was looking at this and I'm also, looking for jobs and my heart's not in it because I really want to just go play disc golf. I just won a couple A tiers at the end of the year and I'm clearly like my rating's up at like 930 something at this point. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, I can almost tour on this. Like this is so close to like if I played well and I really like pinched pennies while I was out there, I could maybe make that work. And I kind of like mentioned that. I was like, what if I just got a trailer and I just like play disc golf? Like, what would that look like? Because realistically, if I get a new job, I'm not going to have any vacation for about a year.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get to play much. And so I hit up EMAC and was like, hey, I'm thinking about touring. What do you think? And he's like, I think that's a great idea. And right away, he's like, here's what we'll give you, to try and help you out if you actually hop on tour the full time. And it was plenty to like work with. We negotiated some stuff from there, but it was certainly not like one of the big contracts we get now, but it was plenty for what I needed. And I had a decent amount of money saved up from working as an engineer for 4 years.
Perfect.
And so we were like,
that
okay.
pays well?
Yeah. Fun fact. And I would say I was probably one of the lower paid like engineers. Is that particular company is great because they'll hire you fresh out of school with no experience.
Perfect.
They just pay you a little bit less than everybody else.
Ah.
But in this day and age, when you need 5 years experience to get an entry level job, that was perfect.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, I had some money saved up, and I'm like, okay, well, we already have the truck. Tyler's willing to let me tour in his truck. I could probably get a little travel trailer for $15,000 to $20,000. So like we can do that. And if I needed to, I could just do nothing for a year and I'd be okay financially. That included paying like rent and stuff.
Perfect.
So I'm like, this could work. Let's just do it for a year. If it sucks, we'll go back, we'll get a job. No problem. If it's great, maybe this can be a new career for me. And so, yeah, late November, quit the job. December, we moved and I gave it a full, basically from when we moved up until Vegas. Like that was my first extended period of time where my only job was to practice. I played a few B tiers and then just jumped on tour.
Perfect. Yeah, we came across each other during those few B tiers.
Yeah, we were just sweeping stuff.
Yeah.
We were just winning everything.
murdering the Texas B tier.
Just shredding the Texas B tier scene.
So during that time where it was the first time all you had to do was disc golf, and then leading into the first couple tournaments on tour, how were you kind of feeling about the transition from your steady job into disc golf being your job?
Yeah, so the transition was actually pretty smooth because turns out being a college athlete's a lot like just being a full-time athlete, except you have to also study.
Yep, and you get paid.
That's true, and I get paid. Like my mom's not paying my rent anymore. Granted, my rent's a lot higher than it was when I was in college. But yeah, I mean, I had I would schedule out my day somewhat rigidly, not super rigidly, but it'd be like, okay, well, every day I'm going to wake up around 9 o'clock. I'm going to get up. I'm going to do some cardio. I'm going to go to the field and work for this many hours. I'm going to come back. I'm going to lift weights and I'm going to aim to be done about the same time that Tyler gets off work. And so I structured my day so that I could get as much high quality practice in as possible, you know, get my training and weightlifting and stuff in. And then also, you know, I added reading books and stuff to try and help make those more efficient to that as well. And then I flew to Vegas for that one. So I was just in Airbnb and pretty typical of what I'd done before. And then we bought the RV probably around January. And so Waco was the first tournament where I was in the RV.
Okay, awesome. So you said it felt pretty smooth from the get-go, like you felt good about it. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I even need to ask this question, but my follow-up to it was, well, that's how you felt about it then. How are you feeling about it now after the season you've had?
Yeah, it's surprising how quickly this lifestyle just starts to feel normal.
It's weird.
It's weird. It's like, yeah, why didn't we do this earlier? Because now Tyler's on tour with me. He hopped on tour after Ledgestone. And so we're not paying rent anymore. So we're saving a lot of money there. And he's actually still working. He's just working way fewer hours. And so it's like, we don't have to work full time. We don't have all these bills and we're making more money. Why didn't we do this sooner?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Well, it's also good when you go from, in 2020, correct me if I'm wrong on this, being 854 rated, I think was your first rating after like 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Hopping up all the way to the most recent update being 960 rated and being ranked currently number 14 in the world. Mm-hmm. So when you make that jump that quickly, things tend to go well.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that quickly because I think the only reason it was that quick is because I didn't care how fast it was.
Okay, I like that.
Because we kind of mentioned how people are always looking for quick fixes, and the only time you're going to progress quickly is when you're okay with, like, you're going to do it until it works.
Yep.
Not, I need to do this right now.
Yep.
And so kind of having that attitude of, like, I'm just going to work on this until it clicks for me. And I don't know how long it's going to take, and I don't care. I'm just going to show up here every day, and I'm going to put X number of hours toward this thing. And then you're so focused on that process that you kind of look up and you, like, look back and you see how far you've come.
No, that's awesome. I like that a lot. All right. So I put out on the social medias, actually on Facebook this time. I switch it up. I don't know.
You gotta follow him everywhere.
Yeah.
If you want to get your questions in.
Exactly. I put out that I was interviewing on the podcast today, and I got a few fan questions for you. Some of them most of them are serious. One of them is definitely not serious, but it's a good mix. So starting off, first fan question is from me. It was a question that didn't fit into any other category. You have a rapidly growing social media presence. What has been your key to staying consistent with it, especially with how fast paced like living on the road is?
Yeah, so the social media stuff, the biggest thing that really jump started it was doing the Pro Tip Tuesdays. And the reason I picked that is because I knew I got to do something more with my social media. I need to do something consistent. And what I didn't want to do was what some players do is they'll just kind of let you into their lives. They'll tell you every little detail that's going on. And I didn't really want to do that. But I'm already such a nerd about form stuff. And I've found success pretty rapidly coming from, 0 to where I'm at now. And I still have a pretty good memory of what it was like to learn. And so I thought, okay, well, once a week I'll post something that could help someone who's trying to learn disc golf. And it blew up immediately.
Absolutely.
Like that very first one was like easily way more views, way more likes than anything I'd gotten before. I had tons of really positive feedback about it. And so I just made up my mind that like, okay, I can do one post a week. And then I added on top of that, I was like, okay, I can do that one post. I can do one pre-tournament post. So just something of me throwing. And then I can do one post-tournament post. So I can do 3 posts a week. And then, it's like something that's manageable that I know I can stick to. And so it's, I have to put one kind of high effort post for that pro tip, and I'll try to queue them up if I have like ideas for them.
Yeah.
And then it's just, okay, I need to do 1 or 2 videos during my practice round. And then I need to make sure I get some kind of picture or video during my tournament round. Pretty easy, you'd think. And then from there, I've been able to kind of add to it. It's a lot like when you're trying to figure out how to practice for disc golf, it's committing to something that you can do every week, right? If you can commit to 30 minutes after work on a Tuesday, and you can do that every week, and then you can kind of build from there once you get some momentum going. So then from there, it's just been keeping the momentum going. So now I'm trying to post almost every day, which is a lot. But
yeah, it is.
It's a lot. But now I've got friends to help, and now Tyler's on tour and helping. So kind of, again, I've built momentum from those kind of earlier, like 3 posts a day, to now it's not so overwhelming to do 5 to 7 posts a day.
A 5 to 7 post a day? No,
did I say per day? Per week.
I knew what you meant. Oh gosh. Moving on to Dylan and Patrick asked very similar things. I'm sorry, Dylan, I'm not going to ask everything in her bag. I apologize. But Patrick asked a very similar question, so I decided to combine them. What is your favorite distance driver, fairway driver, mid, and putter currently in your bag right now?
Favorite distance driver, definitely the Rive.
I wonder why.
I mean, I bagged 5 of them. I got an albatross with one of them. They're pretty dope.
Sells itself.
They're pretty dope. Favorite fairway, probably the Culverin.
Okay.
Underappreciated disc in my opinion.
Is.
I mean, it's just a very straight flyer. It's a little more overstable than my Escapes. So it holds up in the wind a little bit better, but just a very straight flying 9-speed. Favorite mid, easy. That's the Trust. I have that purple first run Trust that's been in my bag almost since I joined the team, and it's just my gap hitter.
All right.
Like I hardly ever throw a bad shot with it. And then favorite putter. I mean, I have my putting putters, and I have like one mold that I throw. So we'll go with the thrower. I threw a Gold X Pure.
Okay.
Again, just a super straight flyer, but I can throw it a little nose up if I wanted to fly a little more stable. Also, I just had a throw in with it like last weekend. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it.
So I did see it because I saw the caption, which was something about having the world champ or the champ, I think is what you said. Both apply. Something about having the champ's name on it makes it go in. Shout out to Kristen, I guess.
Shout out to Kristen, I guess. She's pretty cool. Whatever.
Facts. Amazing season. All right, Mark asks, did touring all season live up to its expectation? What changes will you make for touring next season?
So I tried to not have a ton of expectations. I expected to experience burnout at some point. I expected to get homesick at some point, and I expected the certain elements of tour, like the driving and stuff, to be more of a grind. Yeah. Which it was, but not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Especially, you get good podcasts and some good music going. It's like, you can break up the drive and it's really not a problem. And it turns out like pulling the RV really wasn't that bad. As for the burnout, I didn't really experience the burnout. I did kind of build in some breaks. Like I didn't do the initial East Coast swing like Champions Cup or any of that stuff, and I didn't do some of the West Coast swing, so I got some longer breaks in there. I think going into next season, since Tyler and I will both be on the road full time and we don't have rent or anything, we're going to get a bigger trailer. So probably something about the size of yours. And we're going to get
highly recommend it.
Yeah, with slide outs. So you actually
nice.
have room to walk past somebody.
It's very, very nice.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then obviously we got to get a bigger truck because an F-150 is just not going to cut it. And I'm still going to kind of build in those little pockets, those little breaks, because I'm hoping next year I can just focus on Elite Series and higher events. And since there are some breaks in the tour, instead of going and playing A tiers, I'm going to try to find like fun things to do. So we're looking at like hitting Yellowstone after Portland Open, like that kind of thing. Because I think building in that time for rest and relaxation and hanging with friends is really important for like mentally kind of recovering from the longer grinds of tour.
Perfect. No, I love that. I think that's a great plan. It sounded like you had a great plan for this year too, like thinking ahead and building in spaces to avoid burnout.
Yeah, the way volleyball worked is kind of like a flip-flop of our season. So our season's like a 9-month long grind with 3 months off, but volleyball is 3 months of a much harder grind and then 9 months off. And so I was kind of expecting, those every 3 months or so, I'm probably going to need a break, but it's actually, if you're careful, like disc golf's not quite as hard on your body as college volleyball. Yeah, it turns out.
Not surprising. I'm pretty sure volleyball is, I actually don't know this. Is volleyball considered by the NCAA as a contact sport?
Technically, no. That being said, I have gotten a concussion and I have run into teammates and caused injuries. So it is a contact sport.
Gotcha.
It shouldn't be.
I know some people are considering me like, why would you ask that? The teams are on opposing sides. Well, cheerleading's a contact sport. So I just figured there's a lot of stuff that's probably considered
I've seen some pretty gnarly collisions between teammates. I've been part of them. It's it can hurt. And I mean, you're throwing yourself on the floor. So I mean, maybe you're not contacting other people, but you certainly are getting beat up.
I would imagine. All right, are you ready for a thinker?
A thinker.
This is a thinker. Nick asks, would you rather fend off one elephant-sized duck or 100 duck-sized elephants?
Oh, that's easy.
I have my answer for sure.
It's one elephant-sized duck.
Really? I have the opposite answer. Explain.
Okay, I'm just saying 100 of a thing. Yeah. 100 of I don't care what the thing is. 100 of a thing's going to win. Yep. They can just gang up on you, and it doesn't matter how many of you take. They're going to keep coming. Whereas one, I might be able to like trip it. You ever watch the Lord of the Rings when they have the giant elephants?
And they have very skinny legs because it's a duck-sized elephant.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You pull some Star Wars like that Battle on Hoth stuff where you just get some cables around the legs, pull it, easy.
I didn't think about it in that way, but I'm scared of being bitten by like a regular sized duck. Like, I don't know. Typically it's not ducks. It's like those angry geese, but same beak structure, I think. I don't know. So somebody who studies birds, please don't correct me. But I'm scared of being bitten by a duck. That I feel like that would hurt. So if it's a elephant sized duck, that's terrifying. But regardless, I just enjoy the thought of punting hundreds of tiny, tiny elephants.
But just think of the fatigue on like your hips. All right. Elephants are dense. I don't care how tiny it is. That thing's dense.
That's fair.
You're going to break your foot.
Or I could just, a giant elephant is scared of mice. So if I just unleashed 100 tiny mice, I would win very easily.
You're assuming the mice are on your side.
Yeah.
What if they team up?
I'd be against 100 tiny mice and 100 tiny elephants.
If they're like, hey man, if we just kill this human, we get all of their food.
Nick, thank you so much for this question. All right. So one thing I really love to ask on the podcast is to ask about people's routines. Do you have any like unique routines while you're out on tour, or any morning routines or anything like that?
Not really. I try to keep myself, I don't want to believe that I need a routine to be ready for something, because the fact is on tour, sometimes things just don't go according to your plan. You're not in the same place. You have your trailer set up, but you're in a different place. Sometimes you're right by the course. It's 5 minutes. Sometimes you're 30 minutes away from the course. And so if I've got this 30-minute routine, I have to wake up 30 minutes earlier now for this long drive. And so I tried to I need caffeine. That's like the only thing. I got to eat something.
Very important.
I got to drink some kind of coffee, some kind of energy drink. Obviously, I need to warm up my body a little bit. But beyond that, I try to keep it pretty flexible because sometimes, you hit traffic on the way and it's like you can't do your full warm up. So you're going to throw a few in the net, do a couple putts and go. And you don't want to be sitting on the tee of one being like, oh, I only threw 4 shots instead of 20. And I didn't putt anything from 36.5 feet. So I'm not ready for today. You never want to be in that kind of mindset. Yeah. But if I'm in the mindset of like, it doesn't matter how much I warm up, I'm going to, the skill's there. Right? It's like I don't necessarily need to warm up my putt. Like I still know how to putt.
What? You didn't forget?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You're like, no, I practiced putted twice. I'm good. Solid.
Like, yeah, well, actually, I putt pretty much every day. So
yeah,
even if it's not in practice, it's, we're getting some putts in.
I think that's pretty universal for most of us, at least. I don't, I love to putt every day because it just like keeps everything feeling good. But there's probably some people who feel differently. Nobody who I've talked to yet, though.
Yeah, I think the short answer here is we don't get the luxury of having strict routines before tournaments and in the morning. You just have to be flexible.
I need you and Tristan on a podcast together. Because,
be down. Love Tristan.
No. You guys get along great. Your personalities fit so well, but your routine structure, oh my gosh, could not be more different.
That's interesting.
Well, it's people find comfort in different things. Like I personally like a little bit of routine, but I'm not superstitious about it. So like if I were to get to the course late, I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna play bad. I didn't get to do my whole routine, but I would be like, I wish I could have done the whole thing, but this is fine.
Yeah. Well, like when I was playing volleyball, we had a very specific routine of how we prepared, but how early you're going to be able to get there. You have someone else who's ensuring you get there on time. You are going to be in a gym that's roughly the same everywhere you go. You're going to have an opportunity to, you're going to have the same 20 minutes to warm up as a team. It's a lot easier to guarantee that you can have the same routine every single time, but it's just not that way in disc golf. So you kind of have to just let go of that need, I think.
No, I can agree with that. Being flexible is a huge part of being on tour. And not just physically flexible, although you could stand to probably work on that flexibility as well. I know I could. So dumb. All right. Less specific routines. Do you have like any sort of set practice routine or similar thing you do from tournament to tournament, start getting ready to compete on a course?
Yeah. So with my practice rounds, ideally I like to have 3. Sometimes you only get 2 if it's something like GMC where you're 4 days, 2 courses.
Yeah.
But that first practice round is really a lot of experimenting. So I'm probably throwing the most tee shots I'm going to throw all week in one day. Because I'm just trying to see what are all of my options. And then the second practice round, I'm dialing it in a little bit more. I've narrowed it down on most holes to what I'm going to throw. I might be between 2 shots on some holes, but I have probably about 80% of the game plan figured out. And then the third round is almost like just a normal round. I don't score it because I don't want to set an expectation of what I should score on the weekend, but I'm mostly throwing one shot per shot. I might throw like a corrective shot if I just shank something, but I treat it a little bit more like a round.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Do you separate, like, first of all, do you do field work while you're on tour, or is it mostly practicing on the course?
I don't do field work on tour because I don't want to be thinking about mechanics when I'm playing the rounds. So I separate like practice in terms of like field work and mechanical practice, not necessarily course prep practice. They're 2 very different things in my mind. So that's purely an off-season thing. Or if I have like a month off, I might dip into that a little bit. But I don't want to ever question what the flight of the disc is going to be. Even if that means, okay, I have to put working on the sidearm on hold for a little bit. So where it's at right now is what I have. I think it's really important to believe in the tournament that your skill set is enough for that tournament.
That is a incredibly important belief. Very, very good to have high confidence levels going into a tournament. What does your putting practice routine look like? Or how much putting practice do you get?
Yeah, so it's actually changed quite a bit over the year. So in the off season, and even actually going back to when I first started, like just working on my disc golf game, I would do 30 minutes a day. And so that would be every single day, 30 minutes a day. We're going to work. It'll be a little bit of working on mechanics and experimenting, and then a little bit of practicing the routine. But actually, as the season's gone on, I've kind of gone away from that, because what happens when I practice putt for an extended period of time is I start tweaking things, because that's just how I am. I want to just see like, oh, if I do this a little differently, like, how does that affect the putt? But then what happens if I get too tweaky, I go into the tournament and I'm like, wait, how do I putt again? Like, am I like a spin, do I do nose up? Do I do like a pronation at the end? Do I supinate at the end? Like what's the mechanic I decided worked? And then you're kind of questioning yourself.
Yep.
So I think, so when my putt is good, I do very little putting practice. I will keep it to just what's going on in the round. So like in my practice rounds, I'll do, 4 or 5 putts per hole, just to kind of make sure I'm kind of greasing the groove. But if I feel like my putt is off, I may go spend, 15 minutes just kind of getting back. And that's not working on mechanics at all. That's purely working on the routine and building confidence in my current putting stroke.
Gotcha.
So the short answer is I try to avoid changing my putting stroke now mid-season if I can help it.
I like it. So quick tidbit. I heard you say greasing the groove. Is that from your weightlifting background? Just curious, where do you, if you even know where you got that phrase? Because I associate that so heavily with weightlifting.
It might be. I don't know.
Okay,
This
fair.
is a thing people say, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I had to address it because you said it, and I was like, I'm triggered.
It
all
might
of
be a
sudden.
powerlifting thing, because that's what you talk about with like peaking blocks and deloads and stuff. Is
Yep.
you're just keeping the what do they call it, the technique like
Yep,
good, but you're not actually trying to get better. You're just
greasing the groove.
greasing the groove. You're just keeping everything tight.
By the way, I know people on video can probably see us hit the table every now and then. Obviously, I just did it. So I apologize to all the audio-only listeners, because both of us have been infrequently hitting the table.
It's mostly John.
I smacked it so hard a second ago. I'm actually surprised. We're right next to an airport, and there have been airplanes, jets flying over all day. And I was worried that like a jet was going to fly over, but nothing's flown over so far, unless I completely ignored it when it did.
All you have to do is call them and politely ask that they hold all flights while we record
It's
a
very-
podcast for disc golf.
Very
in
important.
a trailer.
You didn't have to add the in a trailer part.
Hey! I live in a trailer too, so
It's fair.
we're bougie trailer trash here.
I love it. All right. I lost completely where I was on my notes. Bam, got it. Do you have a workout routine that you follow on tour? I actually unintentionally segued into that perfectly, apart from the airport distraction.
We're professionals here,
Or lucky.
or lucky, both. Again, I've kind of iterated on that as well, because I think during season, especially, it's the most important thing is that we're recovered and we're prepared for the tournament. So when I'm working out, I'm not pushing myself to get stronger the way that I am in the off season. So in the off season, I work out about 4 days a week, sometimes 5. But during the season, the best that I've been able to do consistently to kind of maintain fitness, but also not make myself sore come tournament day, has been 2 days a week. And so I focus primarily a lot more on mobility, because I think that's getting strong through a really full range of motion, so that when I'm in weird positions or I'm in these weird repeated motions, I don't get hurt.
Yep.
And that seems to work pretty well for me. The thing I do have to be a little careful when I go into the gym, because I can't go super hard at it. Or, I'm sitting here with very sore hamstrings because I broke that rule yesterday. If I think about training hamstrings, my hamstrings get sore. Facts.
That's fair. Especially if you think of any like heavy eccentric loading, you're like, my hamstrings hurt just thinking about
It's
this.
like, we're not doing RDLs, but yeah. Anyway, so that's something I have to be a little bit careful of. And, but yeah, I try to do 1 lower body and 1 upper body per week, try to do them pretty early in the week, so I have plenty of time to recover. And yeah, beyond that, I'm not lifting anything super heavy. We'll save that for the off season.
Perfect. And that was my next question, was off season. So you touched on it perfectly. All right. So it is now time for the fan favorite segment, Steph's Curious Questions. I know. It's
lovely.
It's great, right?
Very tasteful.
So I explain this every week. So in case the viewers at home or listeners at home do not know, in case you don't know, Steph's Curious Questions is basically where I tell my wife, Steph, who is coming on the podcast for this episode. And she either has questions that she wants to ask this person or she stalks their social media. At one point, I think she liked something months and months ago in somebody's timeline, and that was really funny. I think it was for Bradley, and he was like, "What happened?" But basically, that's what it happened. That's what happens on Steph's Curious Questions. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Question number 1. You've succeeded at a high level in many sports. What do you think is the biggest difference between playing... Oh, and you touched on this earlier, actually. But let's see if we can find a different one. The biggest difference between playing with a team versus playing as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, I did touch on it earlier where, you don't have people to help you with things.
Yep.
You have to do it all yourself.
People can't cover your flaws.
People cannot cover your flaws, or if you're having a bad day. Yeah, it's hard to find another difference.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest difference.
That really is the biggest difference. I mean, even outside of just being on a team sport, like in college, all I had to do was show up and try hard. But someone else was figuring out our schedule and figuring out when we needed the bus to be there and what hotel we were gonna stay at and who was gonna room with who and what we were gonna eat. And, how early do we need to get there and what time do we need? It's like, all I had to do is like, oh, the bus is leaving at 4:30. So it's like, cool, get there at like 4:15 because it will leave without me.
Rough.
Yeah. And I also had a team of athletic trainers. So I could be like, my shoulder hurts, help. And a professional would help me with it. But now I need to figure out what tournaments I want to play. I need to figure out where they are. I need to book the campgrounds myself, figure out what route I'm going to take, maintenance and stuff on the trailer and the truck. Managing sponsorships and negotiating that sort of thing, finding new sponsors and new opportunities. I have to do all of that.
Yep. We are the athlete and the manager all in one.
Yes, you have to do everything. Mm-hmm. And then you also have to show up and try your best. I had a strength coach. I have to do my own strength programming.
It is kind of weird. It the showing up and trying your best part, while it is the most seen part, it almost feels secondary compared to all of the preparation that went into being able to show up and try your best.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this at the course earlier. It's like you'd think that with all you have to technically do today is about a 3-hour practice round, you'd think you'd have all these hours in the day to do stuff, but you just don't.
Yeah. So I think this is a good time to say thank you for taking time out of your day to hop on the podcast, because I understand days get very short out here. It's weird.
Yeah, because I also joked about, when you were asking me what time I wanted to do the podcast, and I pushed it back an hour and a half because I told you, it was like, I don't know what time I'm going to be available for anything. If I can show up for my tea time, that's the only time I'm punctual. Tea time.
It worked out great. I got extra putting practice in, and now I don't smell because I took a shower, because otherwise it was going to be a smellier podcast.
Yeah, I showered. Good for us. 2 disc golfers who showered.
Perfect. All right. Question number 2. You obviously are very intelligent, having the engineering background and everything.
You haven't met that many engineers. There's some pretty dumb ones.
If you could nerd out for 30 seconds on any topic, what would it be?
You mean besides disc golf?
Besides disc golf.
Broadway.
Broadway.
Yeah, easily.
Wow, you and Steph need to have a conversation.
Yeah, she needs to come hang out with me and Raven and Ella because,
goodness.
Yes, we have every lyric to everything memorized for the most part.
All right. Dude, it's going to happen now.
Yeah.
All right, so invited. Broadway.
She's invited to Broadway karaoke when we inevitably do it.
I just heard a woo from the back. Perfect. Oh, gosh. All right, question number 3. We are currently missing the Texas State Fair since we are out on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it's sad. Yeah, I know you live in Austin, so it's not a big of a deal.
I
but
don't live in Austin. I'm homeless now. I live in a trailer. We talked
You
about
claim Austin. You claim Austin.
I claim Austin.
But we're from Dallas, and so it's like down the road. But what food did it again? What is your favorite food you have had there?
I mean, everything's fried. So
Everything.
Literally.
So you can just start the sentence with fried.
Fried. Yeah, I haven't actually been since I think college.
Oh, wow.
Since probably my senior year of college. Well, because we moved to California for 4 years, so I didn't come
true.
back for the state fair. I mean, fried Oreos are pretty dope. Honestly, fried anything with cheese in it, it's pretty good.
Always.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the fried butter, which is sounds awful.
Well, I would think the butter would melt, and so you're just eating fried like breading with a ton of butter in it.
So what I think they do is I think
they freeze it.
I think they bread the butter.
Mm-hmm. You butter bread.
I know.
That's a reversal.
That's why I couldn't stop laughing. So I think they bread the butter. Then I think they freeze it so that it lasts long enough as they deep fry it to come out not in just melted. I don't know how they do it, but
I mean, they're able to fry ice cream, so
it's true.
I guess you could fry butter.
It's wonderful.
Fried ice cream's pretty dope.
All right. So if you want fried foods and you don't live in Texas, it's kind of a big deal that they fry everything. Fried donuts, fried cheeseburgers.
Do you want to burst your bubble a little bit
They
here?
probably do it everywhere.
They do it everywhere.
Well,
you can go to the Orange County Fair and it's all the same vendors.
Well, now I'm sad.
They don't have big techs though.
They don't have big techs. Probably more than Volume 2, but at the very least Volume 2 since that other guy burned down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that is the end of Steph's Curious Questions. You got to do the intro and the outro.
Well, yeah. You got to be consistent.
All right. On to the two main questions I ask every podcast. We always finish with these. What is an actionable piece of advice you would give to a beginner player looking to get better?
Actionable piece of advice would be consistency with your practice. So pick out 30 minutes a week, hour a week, whatever you can manage, but set aside time consistently every week that you're going to go practice because then you can figure out how to be efficient with at that time, what you want to work on specifically, and you can get better at practicing because practicing itself, I think, is a skill, is going to do you a lot better in the long run than if you're just sporadically doing, an hour here, month later do another hour. Even if it's, every month you do 4 hours, it would be better to do an hour every week or half an hour every week, whatever you can manage.
No, I like that. I'm going back to just exercise references everywhere right now. Apparently that side of my brain is just very active. That's also very punny, active and exercise. I know, it's a real problem. Dad jokes just course through my veins. And it made me lose exactly where I was going with that. But a lot of people are obsessed with having a perfect plan. You don't need a perfect plan. The best plan you can have is the one that you do the most consistently. Mm-hmm. And I always love going back to that. You don't need the perfect plan. That's great. You've written it out on paper. It's something that a lot of people can't do consistently. Mm-hmm. Find the one that you can do it. That's the best plan for you.
Yeah, and you're going to iterate on it, right? So version 1 of practice, maybe you go throw in a field for an hour with no structure and you realize that doesn't work. So it might be, okay, version 2 is I have an idea in mind of what I want to work on and I go work on that for an hour. And then you're going to iterate and iterate and iterate on top of that. And eventually you're going to get better at practicing. So what your practice looks like when you start versus what it's going to look like a year in, it's going to be very different. And if you focus on my goal is to practice every time I say I'm going to, instead of my goal is to achieve a specific form change or whatever in a certain amount of time, you're going to find a lot more success.
I like that. All right. Now, what would you recommend to an aspiring pro player?
The same thing. But I can give a little extra if you're trying to actually go pro.
Yep.
Learn how to throw with good technique first. Because once you're on tour, once this becomes your job, it's very hard to find time to do those things and also prepare for the courses. Because like I said, I like to do 3 rounds of practice every day. That's about 12 rounds of practice a week. Plus you need to rest. It's like you don't have time to be working on mechanics. And if you're working on mechanics, you're not going to perform well week to week. And so if you want to be prepared for that grind, also to further that point, if you have good technique, you're going to get hurt less often.
Yes.
And so, if you're able to throw at 80% capacity because your form is really good instead of having to spray at 100%, you're not going to get hurt as much. I can say for myself, one of the things I worked on in my sidearm was, my wrist. So like doing the serve the pizza thing that you hear Scott Stokely talk about. I used to do that. When I changed to doing more of like a baseball throw wrist, suddenly I don't have elbow pain anymore. I can throw a lot more sidearms, and I probably saved myself from getting an elbow injury this year just doing that. So yeah, if you're an aspiring pro, you need to get good putting, backhand, and forehand mechanics first.
Also, shout out to Scott Stokely.
Yeah, Scott Stokely's dope. Go check out his YouTube.
Not hurting the elbows.
And for saving my elbow. He doesn't know he did it, but he did it.
Now he knows, hopefully. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Before you go, feel free, plug everything you've got going on and, how people can find you.
Yeah, the thing I'm the most active on is my Instagram. Every week on Tuesday, sometimes not on Tuesday, I post helpful pro tips. So if you're anyone who's trying to get better at their disc golf game, they're very easy to understand. You can kind of scroll through them. And if you're looking to build that practice plan, that can give you some ideas of where to start with your field work. I also post, cool edits and funny stuff too, and just keep you updated on what my tour is doing. So go follow me on Instagram. It's Halls_17. It's not Halls_17_. That's a fake account. Please don't follow them.
Report them.
Please report them.
I've seen that. Report them.
Honestly, at this point, they bought all their followers, and the only interaction they get is with other bots. So we're pretty good.
That's actually great. Leave them in purgatory. Never mind.
Exactly.
All right. So quickly before we head out of here, today is the last day for pre-orders on the Geometric Lion Nicholson merch. So if you want to, head over to my website at johnnicholsondg.square.site. It will be also in the link below because, I got it right. I did it without even looking. Also, thank you all for watching and listening. And remember, if you like the show, please do all the things like, comment, subscribe, review. Yeah, all the things. Is that all the things?
That's 4 things.
That's 4 whole things. That's
Probably
all of them.
all of them.
All right, perfect. Thank you, and see all you guys next week.